Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vedya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matra Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. So we are still in the 16th chapter, and what verse are we on, Mark?
23.
And who would like to chant this evening?
We have somebody new in class today.
Oh, welcome. Who is it? Our new person?
The screen says Desai.
Can you unmute and introduce yourself, please? Hari Om. You're quiet. All right. Puneet, will you chant? Do you have the book in front of you?
Yeah, I have a book in front.
All right.
So chapter 16, verse 20 something.
23. We're still in the story of King Janaka and Ashtavakra, and Ashtavakra is inquiring about how is it that it is both known and unknowable. What is it that knows? Why is it unknowable? What happens when we realize that? All these very subtle ideas. All right, help us out.
Natvam shariram prano vamano vapyasthitvatah shariram dhatu nikaram tatte rupam katham bhaved. You are not the body or the vital energy, nor even the mind on account of their instability. The body is a collection of primary ingredients. How can it be a real nature?
So philosophically, we define what is it that's real with a capital R. We say that which is never subject to negation, something that is and always is. And what we're starting in this verse is what we call Drik Drishya Viveka, discrimination between the seer and the seen, between the subject and all the objects, between the self and the not self. So if it can be known as an object, it is something other than the knower. And what we're going to find, that all the objective phenomena have a beginning and an end. They occur in time and space. They have form. They are subject to change. But something there is, the subject, aham, I, which is changeless. So we can understand this intellectually. How do we go about proving it? So in a quiet mind, having let go of our preoccupation with the world, we do this very simple meditation. So you all look at the glass on the table. I am the knower, the glass is an object of knowledge. I'm not the glass, I'm the dude looking at the glass. We can go through all the five senses with that. That is anatman, not self. When we go to the body itself, when you were a child, you had a little body, you went through adolescence, the body changed. You become an adult, the body is changed again. But have you not known all the changes in the body? You take a deep breath and feel the breath in the body. Do you not know the sensation of the breath in the body? You are not the body, you are the knower of the body. Neti, neti, not this, not this. The prana, the vital energy. Sometimes there's a lot of energy, sometimes it's punk. Maybe I'm doing pranayama, the kundalini is moving, but do I not know energy, prana, and its movements? I am not the prana, I am the knower of the prana. We go to the realm of mind, where I have feelings and judgments. There's this wonderful palette of emotions in the human bosom. Joy, sorrow, anger, enthusiasm, etc. But whatever the feelings are, I am the knower of the feelings. I am not the feelings. We go to the realm of buddhi, thought. Thoughts go by like your hand in front of your face, like the sound of traffic outside. But I am the knower of my thoughts. Even the causal body, deep sleep itself. In the morning and I wake up and I remember, oh, I must have slept so soundly, I don't remember a thing. So you can have the awareness of the presence of something, like the phone in my hand, and the absence of something. There is no phone in my hand. So you are aware of the presence and the absence of the mind when it's folded up in deep sleep. But what is it that is the knower of them all, the real fact? Any thoughts about this? Next verse.
तच्चान्या विषया भासे त्वहं धियम् अतिव्रजेत् Evam prano manopi syat aham buddhiv vyatikramat. Moreover, that body would pass over the notion of I on the appearance of other objects. So would the vital energy and the mind also do on account of deviating from or disregarding the I notion. There's a note.
So, go ahead.
Everybody associates the body, sense functions, or the mind with the I notion. While some object is being experienced, this I notion does not exist in relation to the body, senses, or the mind. When an object is seen, there is no awareness of the eyes. When a sound is heard, there's no awareness of the ears. When any object is experienced, there's no awareness of the body. When the body or the breath or the mind is experienced, one is aware as my body or my breath or my mind. Thus, all these are not the self which always shines as the pure I, bereft of these objects.
Yes, very clear. He's again just riffing on this whole idea of anatman, the not self. And what he's saying here is when I'm engrossed in objective phenomena, I'm not thinking I am the body. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's beautiful music. Or the body we identify when we think of it. The whole point he's getting at, the most important factor is if you can see it, if you can know it, if you can cognize it, it is anatman, not self. Next verse.
Aham buddhina vyatitya tishtatyesha parachitihi tasma chitti sarvavetri tvam ashtavakratatvatah. This supreme consciousness does not exist passing beyond the I consciousness, Ashtavakra. Therefore, you are in reality that consciousness which is all knowing.
Yes, so the self that we seek, it is not beyond awareness itself. It is our very experience of I. So listen carefully. The problem is not that I am the ego and I need to become Brahman or get merged with Brahman or have some experience where my experience of I is going to change. What actually happens is I have superimposed upon that direct experience of I all the nonsense of egoism. I am the body, I am my job, I am the son of so-and-so, the daughter of such and such. I am my job, etc. All these I am, fill in the blank. These are abhyas, superimpositions. So what this meditation does is it gets us to discard all those superimpositions. What's left? You find out in a quiet mind, in the space between your thoughts, with the attentive faculty turned inward, introverted. See if you can notice what is the nature of I. And the tricky part is you will not see yourself as an object. Oh, there it is, I saw myself. No. But think. Your eyes, EYE, see this, that, and the other thing. But no person has ever seen their own eyes. But that doesn't mean you don't see it, you don't know what seeing is. Likewise with eyeing. You are that by which everything is known. but yourself can never be known as an object. Yet, you know you are. The self is its own means of knowledge. The self is self-evident. Swayam. Next verse.
Pashya pratyavrittachakshu swatmanam kevalam chitim adesha kala evam swa pashyan uttam buddhayah. Perceive your own self, which is pure consciousness, with the perceiving mind turned back on itself to search for its own source. Those possessed of superior intelligence perceive the self just at the time of teaching.
Yes. So, just as the verse has said, if your mind is subtle, how do we get a subtle mind? Viveka, vairagya, discrimination between the real and the unreal, and this intense spirit of detachment, of dispassion, of disidentification. When the mind has become vishuddha, extremely pure, inquire into I. See what you find. One of my favorite expressions for the ego sense is chit chaya, the shadow of consciousness. It's a phony self. It's a false self. It only appears when you don't look at it. So by shining the light of investigation on what we think is the ego, it falls. What's left is just I, aham, aham. Now, if you don't get it, put this verse on the shelf and do more practices. Next verse.
Chakshu naitad golakam te manascha shutradhritam yena pashyasi swapneshu taccha chakshur mukhyamuchyate. This eye, or the faculty of seeing, is not your external organ. The mind is declared as the eye. That eye is said to be the chief one by which you see in dreams.
So this is EYE that he's talking about?
That's right.
Yes. So here he says that, in fact, the eyes are not in the physical body. They are, in fact, in the subtle body, because we see things in dreams. The physical body is like a mask. So we have Halloween coming up. So if I have a Richard Nixon mask and I put it on, you see Richard Nixon's face, you see eyes peeping out through the mask, you see a tongue going like that. But if I take the mask off, the mask cannot see. Likewise, the sense organs are in the subtle body. And we wear this mask with 5 holes in it. Actually, 9 holes. I lied. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But the real senses are in the subtle body, which we use in dreams. Any questions about this? Going on.
Tasya pratyavrittirapi prochate shrinu bhusara atyavritta chakshuvai naiva pashyati kinchana. Brahmana, listen, the turning back of the mind is also being explained. One whose mind is not turned back inwards does not surely perceive or realize anything.
Yes. So you can do all sorts of disciplines. But as long as the mind is pointed at stuff, even subtle stuff, I'm going to focus on my visualization of Lord Shiva until I get it very clear in my mind. This is what we call upasana. These are preliminary practices. Down at the Siddha Yoga Center, they used to say, you want to be able to see the blue pearl. Do you see the blue pearl? Oh, you're really advancing if you see the blue pearl. Mind is still extroverted. You may go to your therapist and they say, look within. Oh, I'm an abused child. I have anger. I have fear. I have sadness. You may have all these things in the interior world, but you are still looking outward, according to yoga. Who is it? Who is the ultimate knower? Who is the knower of the field in every field? As Krishna says in Gita. Kshetra Kshetranya, the knower of the field in every field. How do we do it? Quiet in the mind. Whatever practice you want to use. Japa, being with the breath. The mind is settled down. Watch the thoughts go by. When the thoughts have slowed down enough so that you can begin to see the beginning and the end of the thought, then you will see there's space between them. Who is it who sees the thoughts and the space between the thoughts? And in those moments when the mind is free from all mentation, with the attentive faculty introverted, the nature of the self is made evident, meaning the subtle intellect goes, oh, I get it. There's nobody there. Next verse.
Ridikshu chakshusha kinchit tadanyabhyo hyasheshatah pratyavritya dridam tasmin naiva sanyojayedhyati tada tadbhasate sprishtam nanyada tu kadachana anyada tu parovritti nasprishtam bhasate kvachit. If one wishing to see something with the eye fixes it firmly on that alone, turning it back completely from other things, then it appears clearly, but not in any other case at any time. On the contrary, In any other case, even a thing existing in front does not appear clearly anywhere.
So is he using EYE or pronoun I?
EYE.
So if, for example, you want to thread a needle, you've got to fix your visual attention on the hole in the needle, the eye of the needle. You've got eyes, eyes, and eyes. Then you're able to stick the thread through. But if you're distracted, you can't do it. Or if you're a scientist, you want to look at a bug under your microscope, you've got to bring the totality of your visual acuity to what it is you're studying. And everything else fades away. So also, turn the mind back on its source intensely, and everything else falls away. Now, it may just be for a momentary glimpse. What do you need? Going on.
Abhata kalpam eva syat pratyavritti achakshusha evam shotrat vagadinam bhudevavehi sansthitam. With the eye, EYE, or the mind, not turned back from the other objects, it would only be nearly equal to a thing that has not appeared. Brahmana, thus you understand also the state of the organs of hearing, touch, and the rest.
So it's the same. The capacity of the mind to be single pointed. I tell you, people experience samadhi all the time. But because of the lack of the introversion of attention, they miss it. I frequently use the example. It's hard now in COVID because nobody rides it, but back in pre-COVID days, rush hour on the BART train. Standing up, you've had a long day at the office, your mind is really dull, and you're going, and you space out. Mind is technically in samadhi. Then your awareness comes back, and what do you realize? Back of Bart's seat. So if the mind stops when the attention is introverted, then you can realize your self-nature. So it's not only bringing the mind into absolute quiescence, it's also this intense introversion of the attention, the attentive faculty, focused on who am I? What is my essential nature? Everything is stripped away. Who am I? Next verse.
Manasa pya evam eva syat sukha dukkhavabhasanam na pratya vritta manasa kinchid vedi tum arhati. The manifestation of happiness and sorrow through the mind would also be like this. One cannot feel or experience something with a mind which has not been turned back from other objects.
Yeah, I think the classic example of this is eating in front of the television. I'm the only one, I bet, that's in class tonight that's done that. Really, no one else eats in front of the television?
I do.
Yes? No?
No,
Do you really taste what you're eating when you're just while you're watching the tube? Or you're busy doing housework or something like that and you have the radio on, are you really listening to the music? Or is it just background noise? So in order for our self-inquiry to be successful, we have to have attained the quality of dharana, single-pointed concentration, single-pointed attention. We practice this in the world. Swamiji always used to say, put your mind where your hands are working. Very interesting things happened with that. I used to have this incredible resistance to doing dishes. Hated doing dishes. I knew why I hated it. Doing dishes was punishment when I was a kid. And then I took up Swamiji's practice, his suggestion. When I was washing the dishes, I practiced. When I was washing the dish, I was only washing the dish. And all of a sudden, it wasn't odious anymore. The dislike was all stories going on in my mind, conscious and unconscious. That's all it was. So I invite you to practice this. Next verse.
Tasmat परता परावृत्तिश्च चक्षुषः प्रत्यावृत्तं मनः शुद्धं निजरूपम् avabhasakam. Therefore, sole absorption in that alone, that is, in the thing desired to be experienced, and the turning back of the eye or the mind from other objects, is required for the experience of the desired object. The pure mind, free from thoughts, turned back on itself, is what makes one's real nature manifest.
The pure mind, turned back away from objects, turned back on its own source, is what makes reality known. Now, remember, there's two kinds of knowledge we're talking about here. The first knowledge, the perfect knowledge, everybody already has. In Yoga Vasishta, it says, both bondage and liberation occur to the mind, the self is ever free. So it's the mind, technically the subtle intellect, that goes through this transformation. When the mind is in ignorance, I think I'm my body, or my body plus the personality. I still am experiencing the self. I am unhappy. I am happy. I am successful. I am a failure. It's still always there. But I just don't notice it. I don't recognize it for what it is. Where does that recognition take place? In the mind. It is the buddhi, the intellect, that becomes buddha, awake. The awakened state of mind, when it is very subtle and pure, and brought to a single point. Just put your thumb on it for a minute. Turning the attention inward. See if you can see space between thoughts. Keep noticing, who am I? This doesn't create the self, achieve the self, become the self, merge into the self. We are able to see what's really there. Then it is the subtle intellect that is profoundly transformed by that deep insight. What do we call that deep insight? Vipassana. Drish paschati, see, pashyana, seeing, vipassana, insight. So if you take a vipassana retreat, that's what they're talking about. Next verse.
अत्र ते सम्प्रवक्ष्यामि शृणु तन्नीयतान्तरः अघोरश्च चेदात्मनासौ मनसा गोचरोऽपि च. I shall explain to you in this matter. Hear that with a controlled mind. If that self is imperceivable by the mind, it is also attainable by the mind.
So it's imperceivable by the mind, but it is attainable or realizable by the mind. What do we mean by this? And I've done this exercise many times with you. Rub your hands together. The instrument for the direct experience of hand rubbing is hands. Now the mind is going to practice reflection. When you rub your hands together, was it motion or stasis? It was motion. Was it warm or cool? It was warm. With your hands down at your sides. Now, rub your hands together with your mind. Can't do it. The mind cannot do hand rubbing. The mind is not the instrument for the direct experience of the self. Just as hands are the instrument for the direct experience of hand rubbing, I is its own means of knowledge. I is the instrument for the direct experience of I. But just as my mind could reflect, was it warm or cold? Was it motion or stasis? So also the mind can reflect on the direct experience of I. Now, if I try to rub my hands together with boxing gloves on, I'm not going to get as intense a direct experience. Likewise, that kind of falls down a bit. I was thinking, if the mind is not pure, still direct experience. Never mind, forget that. It's not a good analogy. Going on. Next verse.
Atra muhyanti bahava shrutya gama viveka chakaha mano gocharata brahmai dvipakarena sanstita. In this matter, many who ascertain the import of the Veda and Agama scriptures are perplexed. Perceivability by the mind exists in two ways in external objects.
So he's now going to explain to us how it is both knowable and unknowable, how it is not directly experienceable by the mind, but is realizable by the mind. And agama here just means scripture. Going on.
Adhyanyebhya paravritti para tatparata bhavet anyebhyastu paravrittim atrepi manasa sati nakinchid dasyad yedvastu tattasthavasareshut tasma tatparatapyatra vyaparo manasa paraha. The first would be turning back from other objects and the other soul absorption in it. But even when there is the mere turning back of the mind from other objects, no object whatever which is standing aloof at that time can appear. Therefore, here, in the matter of experiencing objects, even soul absorption in it is the other mental effort required.
Yes. So by turning my mind away from all objects does not allow me to know the object in which I'm interested. I have to have the total absorption in that object. So here, it's not a matter of just turning the mind away from the phenomenal world. Well, that's easy enough to do. I do it every night. This is cheap Vedanta. Take a Benadryl. I completely turn my mind away from the phenomenal world. That's easy to do. No. You have to have the mind totally absorbed in the self with intense concentration. Let me back up a bit here. A lot of people struggle with, well, are you conscious in the deep state or are you not conscious in the deep sleep state? Don't worry about it. Nobody ever got realized in sleep. Pay attention to in the waking state, not high on MDMA or ayahuasca, but in a mind very pure, very clear, achieved by the hard work of the renunciation of our attachments and our identification. Keeping this idea, who am I? What is my essential nature? And at an auspicious moment, there'll be a gap. And you'll see there's nobody there. And then when the mind returns, it realizes that there's nobody there. Going on. By the way, in all the scriptures I've studied, this section has, in my opinion, the clearest exposition and understanding of what self-realization is. Going on.
Evam vyavritta bhavanam vyaparadvayabhasanam avyavritti chitir yasmat tasman atra tatha bhavet. Thus, for objects which are separated from the self, there is manifestation through the two efforts of the mind mentioned above. Since consciousness is not so separated, it cannot therefore be so in this case.
So, in order to know totally an object, I not only have to withdraw my attention from other objects, but then get engaged in intense attention on that object. But with the self, it's not quite the same, because what you're looking for, you're looking with. What you are looking for, you are looking with. They are the same. Going on.
Anyebhyastu paravrittim anevai vavabhasayet yatha paru sthitadarshye kinchid darshana hetave anyebhastu paravrittir vibhukyam cha tasya vai apekshyate darpanasya pratibimba dridrikshuna gaganam darpane drishtam yada sambhivachati tadanyebhya paravrittim atrena hi kritarthata. But the mind can reveal the self, that is consciousness, just by its mere turning back from other objects. As for the purpose of seeing something in a mirror which is in the front, the turning back of that mirror from other objects in the direction towards the object to be reflected is indeed required by one desiring to see the reflected image. And when he desires to see the sky or space in the mirror, then there is indeed the accomplishment of his purpose by the mere turning back of the mirror from other objects. So it is in this case.
So if you want to see the sky reflected in the mirror, and right now you turn it around, it's seeing the room or the city or the street outside, all you have to do is turn it away from everything else. Then the sky and the mirror is there. So all we need to do by this introversion of attention is withdraw the attentive faculty from objective phenomena. Going on.
Gaganam sarvato vyaptam darpane sarvada sthitam avyavrittim kintucha anyair vichinam na bhasate. The sky or space is pervading everywhere. It is existing always in the mirror and it is not included. But it does not appear being covered over by other reflected images.
So in the mirror, actually space is always reflected, but I don't see the space because on top of the space in the mirror are all the phenomenal objects. So also, the nature of myself is veiled from my mind because of the mind's attention on stuff. And the mind will continue to focus on stuff as long as we have attachment and identification. Turn it within. Who am I? In the end, it's the simple awareness of the most ordinary waking state. We can be in samadhi, this state of no mind. In that state, the nature of myself is most evident. But yourself doesn't go away when the mind returns. Oh, Jim, I had an experience of the self 20 years ago, but I lost it. You didn't have an experience of the self. Who is it who thinks he lost it? I do. That's yourself. You can't lose yourself. Going on.
Sarvashrayam sarvam gatam. Sorry. Sarvashrayam sarvagatam api taishchaditam yataha astebhya paravrittim atraiva vibhasate. Though the space reflected in the mirror is the substratum of all reflected images and existing everywhere in the mirror, since it is covered over by those reflected images, it appears just by the mere turning back from those reflected images.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Yes. So just as all I have to do is tilt the mirror up so it reflects the sky, turning it away from the various images. So also tilt the mind inward so that it withdraws its attention from phenomena, even subtle phenomena. Going on.
Evam chitti sarvagata sarvashrayataya sthita sarvakale samapurna manasi vyomavad dvija. Brahmana. This consciousness is all-pervading and is existing as the substratum of all. It is the same at all times and is filled up in the mind like the space within the mirror.
So that self, that consciousness, that pure awareness, which is always there as I, is not readily apparent to the mind because I am always aware of stuff. What is that by which everything is known, without which nothing can be known? How do I know it? I have to get beyond all the knowables to clearly apprehend the knower. There's a very famous Zen koan, a bell ringing in an empty sky. Make the mind just tuned up, sigh. Just listen to a sound outside. See if you can notice who hears. Nothing there. But it's not no thing because it's being heard. There's an awareness that illuminates the sound. A knower of the field in all fields. Yes. Going on, next verse.
Tasmad anya paravrittim atram manasa ishyate Pashya vipra chittikutra kada nasyatya. Therefore, only turning back of the mind from other objects is prescribed for the realization of the self. Brahmana, consider where and when the shining consciousness does not exist. Note: consciousness pervades the mind always. If it is turned back from objects, it naturally rests in its own true state, which is pure consciousness without effort, in the form of directing the mind towards it.
So this trick of being able to drop the world and allow the mind to turn back, to come home, merge into the self. It's all that we need to do. Now, at this point, I point out the affliction, the klesha, the terrible demon. The demon's name is Yavat. When the mind is so still, then it comes, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but Jim, the scripture says that. Yeah, but Jim, but what about, getting my job? Yeah, but what about my relationship? Stop it. Vanquish that demon. Give up your preoccupation with the world. Stay home. Stay home. Next verse.
Yada yatra cha sa nasti na yada napi yatra cha tasmad chittatma bhavase manasonya paravritihi kevalapekshita naiva abhimukhyam nudnatam kvachit. When and where consciousness, does not exist, there is neither when nor where. Therefore, in the manifestation of the self, that is consciousness, the mere turning back of the mind from other objects is required, and not at all a new direction of the mind towards it anywhere.
So you won't have the problem. It's Thursday morning and I'm in meditation and I'm turning the mind back on its source. And on Thursdays, the self is in Mumbai. No. It's always present. Wherever you go, there you are. Whatever happens, there you are. And I tell you, even at death, when the body falls off, there you are. You do not change. Only the stuff you see changes. Next verse.
Abhimukhya bhava vaheto are vavedhya mishyate ata eva shuddham no avedhyam tat tam muchyate anenya bhastu paravrittir eva shuddhir hi manasi etadeva param tattva jnane sadhanam uchyate. The unknowable nature of consciousness is accepted only on account of its not being in front of the mind as a perceivable entity. For this very reason, that true principle is declared as knowable by a pure mind. But mental purity is indeed the mere turning back of the mind from other objects. This alone is called the highest means in knowing or realizing the true principle.
So when we say the self is unknowable, it means it cannot be known as an objective phenomena. You're not going to go into meditation and go, there's the self. You're not going to have an experience, oh, gold, white light. That's the self. No, self is that which knows the golden light. You're not going to go in meditation, all of a sudden your crown chakra is buzzing. No, yourself is that which knows a buzzing in your crown chakra. Oh, I'm getting messages from my higher power. No, whatever intuitions or messages you're getting, yourself is that which knows them. The self cannot be known as an object. Yet it is always known. You are always you. And it is realizable by a pure mind. Here's the self, here's the mind. Waking state, dream state, deep sleep state. Now watch samadhi. And when the mind returns, it goes, oh my gosh, there's nobody there. Because you are the substratum of all experience. It is both knowable and unknowable. Cannot be known as an object, yet is realizable by a pure mind. All we need to have a pure mind is withdraw our attention from all objects, gross and subtle. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Yavan ahi manashuddham tavad jnanam katham bhavet shuddhe manasi vaijnanam katham vana bhavet dhruvam upakshinam sarvamatra sadhanam tasya shodhane. As long as the mind is indeed not pure, so how long can there be knowledge? When the mind is pure, how cannot everlasting knowledge be born? In the purification of that mind, all the means here are exhausted or have vanished.
So we have all these various methodologies for purifying the mind, the qualifications of a fit student. Japa, observing your breath, scanning the body, all those various things. But here, What the scripture is saying is we have to drop all of that in the end. When the yogi's mind is sthita, still, by what it has heard, what it hasn't heard. That's silence. I like to use the term we have to unknow. It's different from not knowing. We want to unknow. All right, one more.
Katham vopasanam vapi vairagyadikam eva va manasa shodhane eva viniyuktam na chanyatha. Religious rites, religious meditation, or even asceticism and the like are used only in the purification of the mind and not otherwise.
So these outer exercises, worship, upasana, all our various forms of tapas. You've heard me use the example of slicing a tomato. If you've got a big ripe tomato and you have a dull knife and you go to slice it, squish. So the preliminary practice is sharpening the knife. People get caught up in knife sharpening, doing all these practices. How much asana, how much pranayama, how much japa. These are all ways to sharpen the wonder sword of knowledge. But then, how do we slice the tomato? When the mind is quiet, with the attentive faculty introverted, in the space between thoughts. Who am I? Okay, we'll end here tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Oh, that's it. What number are we on for next week?
We're going to do 52 next week.
52 for next week. Thank you all. Is our new person still online?
Yeah. He's here, or she's here.
I hope you'll introduce yourself so we can get to know you.
Maybe their mic isn't working.
That's all right. Hari Om. Good night.
All right,
Good
unmute.
night. Thank you.
They unmuted themselves.
Yeah, hi. I'm Srinivas Desai.
Yes.